Welcome to the penultimate episode of this first season of the God as CEO podcast, where we explore the intersection of faith, leadership, and business. I am your host, Euclid Addo. In this conversation, Doug Dwyer and I dive deep into how God calls us to lead with love, especially in very difficult seasons of a business or an organization. We'll uncover the power of truly knowing your staff as people first before as employees, and how intentional one-on-one engagements create the space to listen, learn, and grow together. We'll reflect on why building people is never wasted effort, and how sometimes letting people go becomes the very wake-up call they need for discipline and growth. This episode is about leading with heart, wisdom, and action. Ready? Let's unpack this. Like I said in the beginning, there are three foundational pillars: excellence, love, and truth. So, to the pillar of love, 2008, you describe it as a tough season. In the midst of a global storm, God graduates you from excellence to live with love. Tell us about that.
Yes, I'll give you the background on that. So the Great Recession that we know about historically was started December of 2007. People globally, they didn't really feel it till the market crash of about October 2008. That's when it stands out. But the reality is it started early. We felt it in the first quarter of 2008. We started seeing our numbers go down. And now I want to give some backdrop to this, because this is the call to live with love. So I had prayed for a wife that God would send me the right woman to marry, and He did. And so I'm scheduled, we're planned to get married April 26, 2008. So here all this terrible stuff's happening. Then my head of marketing, who's now my chief operating officer, goes in for brain surgery. And on top of that, a gentleman we hired misrepresented himself, ended up having to fire him while she was having brain surgery. And then that got into legal stuff that cost us a lot of money. And then lastly, I had a gentleman, the first franchisee ever, that decided he was going to break his agreement with us and go independent. And he was a Christian. So I'm just thinking, God, you're giving me this greatest blessing one of the greatest blessings in my life, second to Jesus, right? And this storm is happening in all different ways, and I'm just like, I would not have written the script this way, Lord. It confused me because all this prosperity gospel, it's all milk and honey, and if you pray fast, stand in authority, read your Bible, help the needy, it's just all going to go good. That's a lie. It's more complex than that. It's true. Yes, it's true on one hand, but by life experience, it's not true altogether. So what happened is 2 weeks before I get married, I get to tell my fiance, I'm giving it 6 weeks, and I've been through tough before. I'm going to give it 6 weeks, and if our revenue doesn't stabilize and it keeps going down, I'm going to have to make some tough decisions and downsize the company, to downsize the expense to match the new revenue, or we're going to go out of business, right? It's a pretty easy deal, but hard to walk out. So in that, I get back from my honeymoon. So that's what I get to think about on my honeymoon, right? I get an email on the lawsuit, all this. I mean, it wasn't ideal. We had an awesome honeymoon.
That's no fun.
God blessed it, but was there some tension? Was there stuff that I had to deal with? Absolutely. It wasn't all milk and honey and roses and somebody would say sunshine and rainbows. Although we enjoyed a lot of sunshine in our vacation, honeymoon. So with that, I get home with my new bride and I sit down with her, and I said, I've been praying, and I feel like God says I should read Proverbs 27. And so I read it, and I first go through it, and it's like nothing just jumped at me, but there was two verses that kind of stood out a little, but not enough that I thought it was anything. So then I read through Proverbs 27 again, and they stand out again, and I go, well, that must be it. It was a little subtle, but they stood out.
Mm,
And so what God taught me that day was that I needed to downsize the company and I needed to walk in love. So he first brought me to know the condition of your flocks and pay
mm,
careful attention to your herds. So in my case, know the conditions of your employees and franchisees and pay careful attention to your suppliers and end user customers. God's word still applies today. You just got to translate it in today's terms because it's not
mm-hmm.
dealing with ag and raising, animals in this
Yeah.
case. So, and then the second one is the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple
Mm-hmm.
keep going and suffer for it. And that was when he just told me, Euclid, with that is you need to downsize the company because you're a fool if you don't,
Mm,
and you're going to suffer for it. And so it was tough, but that's how God taught me the call to live with love. And so then he challenged me to memorize not just the owner of the company, meaning the general manager of the company, but also their spouse's name, like to get to know them better, and then also getting to know my team better. And look, I I don't do it perfect, but I'm more intentional that way. I'm more reminded. I need to take a moment and say hello to people on staff. I need to uh, reach out to a franchisee God puts on my heart.
mm, mm. How do you downsize a company and do it with love? Downsizing is never fun. I mean, people's lives are going to be affected, families are going to be, affected. How do you do that with love? Or how did you do it with love?
So, so where I was at, I'd been through tough before, and I thought, well, this will turn around in 2 or 3 months because my experience said 2, 3 months, maybe six. So the first downsizing, was June of that year. And
Okay.
then guess what? June passed, July passed, August passed, September passed, and
Mm-hmm.
it didn't get better. It got worse. So in
Mm.
October, I have to downsize again. Then November, October, November, December, January passes, and then February, it's still not better. I have to downsize again.
Oh no.
And then I thought that would have been it. And then 2 months later, I realized I'm not done yet. Like the fourth downsizing in one
Oh
year.
Lord.
So now I'm at the point I'm not just letting, the first cuts are easier because, maybe somebody that was marginal, they really weren't performing well and to cut some easy expenses, but it gets harder and harder. What I went through get excruciating. So
Yeah.
I do a fast. I fast for 3 days and I'm like, God, help me. You can turn this around. I don't want to let these two guys go. And I remember sitting in my truck at the end of that fast talking to my wife, and I said, honey, I don't want to let him go. This isn't too big for God. God can take care of this.
Mm,
And then as soon as those words came out of my mouth, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and says, you need to let go of them and not even keep them
mm.
on not even keep them on part-time. So one of these guys, I went to high school together. He's worked with our organization 22 years. And I've lost friends over stuff like this. And I didn't want to lose another friend. So then what I do is I just pray. I say, God, if I pray you will prepare his heart and mind and his wife and anybody that would talk to him about this, prepare all their hearts and mind, prepare my heart and mind and all that around me, our staff, our franchisees, prepare their hearts and minds. And so the day I'm sitting in my office with this guy, I call him in, dreading it, right? Ugh. And I tell him, man, we've been struggling, et cetera. And he knew it was coming. And I'm getting tears in my eyes because this is just hard.
Yes.
And so then he says, hey, stop. He goes, stop. He goes, get up. And so he came over around my desk and he gave me a hug, a big old bear hug, and says, man, I love you,
Wow.
man. He goes, I know it's not your fault.
Mm,
And so God answered that prayer. Euclid, I didn't
Did.
try to do loving people alone. I asked for the Lord's help. And
Mm.
and and he's active. He's the CEO, right? So uh, we need to ask him for help in those situations instead of just leaning on our own understanding, right? But
Yeah.
acknowledge him, and he'll make your path straight.
Yeah. That's a difficult curve. Wow. You mentioned Proverbs 27, knowing the condition of your flocks. So, what does loving people look like in business day to day?
Well, this year our theme for
Mhm.
Dreammaker is to love and lead, and that like wow. So a company, this is a national company with the
Mm.
theme of love and lead, and the subtitle of that is to know, develop, and celebrate with your team members. So it takes time. So we've implemented a system that we learn from someone else, and it's a system to have quarterly conversations with our team. Take them out to lunch, plan an hour and a half, find out how they're doing personally. How are they and their family doing? You're investing
Mm.
in it. Then the second thing is find out, hey, what's something you accomplished that you're really excited about, right? And tell me why. And then you can encourage them, build them up on it, reaffirm them, and then you ask them, so what's not working? And then you can
Mm.
find out challenges that make your company better, make their job better. And then you summarize, you give them also an evaluation of things that you see they need to work on. So it's not
Mm.
like a big review. It's a different way. So obviously there's the day-to-day stuff of somebody does a good job, send them a note like, hey, great job, thanks for doing that. You made a difference with that client or with that
Mm.
franchisee. It's making sure you acknowledge people. Hey, how you doing? You may not have time to get a big conversation, but at least say hello. Your words
Mm.
matter. You as a leader, your words have way more weight than you could ever imagine. A consultant taught me it's like you're in a fishbowl. When you look at a fish in a fishbowl, it's magnified. They're a lot bigger. Well, that's what you're like. That's what I'm like in a leadership role. So just remember
Mm.
that, and then write notes every once in a while, like literally a handwritten note. Thanks for your contributions. Hey, that marketing project that helped increase lead flow with the franchisees, that was great. So be specific, and it'll make a bigger impact.
I've always held this position that companies can learn a lot more about their employees and how they are feeling in the course of their work and not wait for an exit interview to learn what made them unhappy. So the nuggets that you've shared, know, develop, celebrate what's working, what's not working, send them a note, have a half an hour conversation with them. I think that gives you more whilst they are still on the job than waiting for them to tender in a resignation and then you quickly want to find out what did not go well. Why do companies kind of neglect or leaders neglect all of these things that they could have done and wait till the end to try to learn things to make it better for those who are left behind?
So it depends. The reason can depend based on the size of the organization, right? So,
Mm.
and the pressures on the organization. So, a small company where you start out with one person and then now you're up to three or four, it could be that you're very time starved and you're like, how am I going to fit that in? How the heck do I do
Mm.
that? The first quarterly conversation I did, I'm headed to Africa for a God is CEO event, and it's like,
Right.
and my chief operating officer, frankly, she's really sharp and great at what she does. She really was pushing this, and I didn't want to have another meeting. So I'm just telling
Mm.
on myself here. And so that's where I told you, you got to have a good team. You want to hire people better than you. And so, anyway, so I forced myself to do it, and it was golden. I found out had I not had that meeting, this lady, she would not have, my assistant, she would not have been as productive as she was able to, because I took the weight off. I had reorganized priorities, and
Mm.
we just said no to one, and we moved two out in the future. And she's like, "Oh, great, now I can focus instead of staying
Mm.
fuzzy and clear on what to do and stay overwhelmed." So it's huge. So time starved can keep it, and then again, some companies are like, well, we don't have time for that. You get paid to do your job. And it's just this attitude that I pay you. This is your responsibility. Get it done. I don't need to, coddle you or babysit you. People might think it is. Well, it's the wrong attitude, right? You need to think our job as Christian business people, or if you're not a Christian business person, it's still awesome to follow, is build people up. Our job is to build them up and help them get better. And if we're doing that, man, we're going to be an employer of choice.
Mm, mm. In your presentation, you always speak to love as being relational. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Again, I think, you know, Jesus set the example. God set the example. And so what happened is God came down in the flesh, through his son, Jesus Christ, and died on the cross so that we could become part of God's family because
Mm,
God wanted relationship with us. And then the great command says, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the
mm,
second command is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. So that's the great commandment. And the second is that. So that's God's priority, is to love people and to do it and to follow his example that he set for us. And so it gets pretty simple, if we'll do that. And there's a brand here in the US called Chick-fil-A, and they do it awesomely. And all the stuff we've been talking about, they're a top performer in sales and customer service and food quality, quickness of turning orders around, order accuracy. Like they measure all that stuff. So that's what it takes. It isn't just I'm going to pray fast, read my Bible, and God's going to bless my business. It takes work.
mm. I have read, especially on social media these days, people say that if you get into a company and they tell you that this company is like a family, we live like a family, we operate like a family, welcome to the family, that's a trap and that is toxic. The workplace is not a place to deal with people as family. What's your thoughts on that?
I have some miles on that one. In fact, two, two decades ago, I would not use the word family because I'm a sensitive person. I care, have a heart, and so I didn't want somebody going that they didn't perform well and we let them go. And they said, "I thought we were family. You lied to me." And it's like stab me in the heart. And I go, I just can't take that. And like this is so I would say that we're a team, and I would always use team. But I will tell you through the tough stuff uh, I've been through in life, in some of those valleys, one big of the valley, God taught me, you know what? He wants us to love people, and they're part of our business family. And our business
Right.
family has expectations and performance, and you can be fired. So God has matured me that we are a business family. So couch it correctly. But yes,
Mhm.
we uh, we call it, the people on my staff and our franchisee, they call it the dream maker bubble. We kind of live in
Okay.
a bubble where people are a lot more nice than most places, and they're encouraging and they build you up. They're willing to help. They're willing to go the extra mile. So
Mm.
it is. And we call our annual convention, which we're going to be having next week, we call it a reunion because
Right.
franchisee said, it sounds too sterile to call it a convention. We're like family.
Mm.
And this is decades ago. And we're like, well, that's kind of our touchy-feely franchisee. And they said, well, we'll look into it. And then we talked to our not touchy-feely franchisees. They said, man, we like it. And we're like, wow, okay. So we went with it, and we never regretted it, never looked back. So yes, you can do it. We're living proof, but you do
Mm.
have to do it the right way. And somebody with wrong motives might use that for manipulation too. So be on guard. Some people are wolves in sheep clothing, so you need to do your due
Mm.
diligence on who you go to hire, who you're going to try to get hired with, and find out. Do your due diligence. That's important.
Mm. So rounding up on the pillar of love, you just shared your story of having to downsize 4 times in 1 year. Very difficult thing to go through, especially like you said, the first downsizing could be a bit easier, but as you keep cutting down, it affects people who are very close to you. As a company, what kind of systems, or per your experience, what kind of systems have you put in place so far when you have to let people go, that it becomes um, easier because everybody on both sides know exactly why you have to do what you are doing?
Yeah, so one that we've talked about is, we train them on our code of values. So everybody realizes there's expectations, right? And
Mm,
delivering those expectations. So that's clear. Then as far as helping let them go, we're doing regular reviews, like I said, meeting with them with quarterly conversations, and that's part of our culture now for years. And the annual review shouldn't be a surprise. Like you shouldn't just download, here's all the things you're doing wrong, because you've been dealing with it along the way. So
mm,
having those systems and structure and dealing with things, you can't do it all at one time sometimes because people can only take so much. So you go through that, and then when we do let somebody go, we're going to treat them with love and respect. Um, Yet they may be mad, and I've had all different scenarios. I've had them be mad, and I go, I'm sorry you feel that way, and we still got to do this. I pray that a great opportunity shows up for you. And
mm.
then doing an exit interview, right, to find out how could we do better. How could we improve that job or job description from doing an exit interview.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I've heard you say that you've previously gone out of your way after letting an employee go to try and find a job for them away from your company. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've done that many times, and help people land in a better place and actually end up surpassing what they probably would have done with us.
Is it the case that people may not be a fit in one company, but they may excel in another? And what could contribute to that?
Well, what I've learned is we all can be prideful and thick-skinned and think we're better than we are, or we know more than we think we know more than we do, and so sometimes we need to be humbled. And
Mm,
so a lot of times God will use that to humble somebody, to wake them up, and then they finally will grow and be a better performing employee of a different team because they had that wake up
okay.
call.
Okay.
Others just would never have the courage to leave uh, the job that they're in. And I'm thinking of one guy specifically, and because he was let go, he now is making more than he would have actually made with us because his job, it was limited, and now he's doing excellent. He's just doing great. We're still friends and still
Mm.
connect. So it's really wonderful.
There you have it. Leadership isn't just about numbers or outcomes. It's about walking in love, even in the hardest seasons. Taking time to connect with your team, asking what's working and what isn't, and choosing to build people up at every opportunity. I know you've been impacted by this episode, so why keep it to yourself? Share it with someone, and don't forget to subscribe because we have more coming your way. Until next time, keep leading with love, keep building people, and keep shaping businesses that honor God. This is the God as CEO podcast. I'm Euclid. Grace and great.